So now I'm going to talk about data types. Uh, I'm going to be talking about more specific for the numeric data types. So let me write this thing down over here so you can see numeric data types. All right. The numeric data types basically you have there is an integer, all right, and there is a float, then there is complex numbers. Okay, for you data, for you guys who are into who have a good mathematical background, you may have worked with the complex numbers. But the rest of you, you may have remembered complex, but if not, I'll just give you a quick tutorial on this thing quickly as we go along. But in data science, as far as I have worked, I have not worked with the complex numbers, but that does not mean that you will not come across complex numbers. So this is something that, I'll just give you a short tutorial on that. Okay, let's convert this into markdown cell. All right, numeric data types. So let's start with these data types. Let's start with integer first. So the way you actually declare an integer data type or a data type to be as integer, you say x. Let's say your a equals 10. All right. Let's say your b equals let's say 3. All right. And let's say you say result. Actually, let's just print what type of sorry b equals 3 and so let us make the indentation a little clearer. So print your a, all right, print the value of a, but clearly it's going to print as 10, no surprises over here. Likewise, if I say print type of a, that's going to print your integer. So let's take a look at it. All right, so it prints the value of a as 10, no surprises. Print the value of what type of this variable a is. It's an integer value, it's an integer type. All right, so it prints the integer. Okay, what if you have a variable c equals 1.2? All right, anytime when you see a decimal number, okay, if you declare a variable with a decimal number, Python will assume that and it's going to convert that into a float. So if you type print, and if you take a look at this type, okay, type of C, you should see float. And there you go, it's showing float right there. Okay, now what if you want to print complex numbers? The way you actually print a complex numbers is you write the number. If you remember from your high school math, the way you actually have a complex number is you have a real part and you have a complex imaginary part. So your real part, let's say, is 1, okay, 1, and oops, sorry, 1 plus 2j. Is it 2j? So this is the notation used in your mathematics to actually print complex numbers. Some books they actually have used I over here. They don't use j, but in Python they use the word j over here. And one of the property of this j is like j square is equal to -1. It's basically under root of -1. Okay, so if you print the type of this variable, okay, it's going to show you a complex. So let's take a look. If you don't believe me, run the cell, and that's going to show you the class complex. All right. So this is your four or three different types of variables. Okay, integer, numeric data types: integer, float, and complex. Okay, so let's delve a little bit deeper into your integer. All right, integer. Integer, and let's delve a little bit more specific into operations. Okay, integer operations. So let's convert this cell into markdown cell. And, all right, integer operations. So let's say your a equals 10 and your b equals 3. All right, okay. And let's say you have, oops, sorry, it's been acting funny. Okay, let's say your result equals to a plus b. All right, so and you print this thing out. Print result. All right. So when you take two integers, okay, and you add them together, so the way you add them is using this plus operator. Okay, so it's going to take 10, it's going to take 3, it's going to use the plus operator, and it's going to combine them together. It's going to print the answer, 13. Now you can also take a look at what type of this variable is. Type res. Okay, and if you run this thing, it's going to print it's an integer type variable. Right? Okay. What other operations can you do? Really? Some of you must have guessed by now. You can also do subtraction. What you have to do is just remove this plus and put minus over there. So 10 minus 3. Okay, so the result is going to be 10 minus 3. So it's going to be 7, and type is going to be integer. Let's verify, and there you go. 10 minus 3 is 7, so result is 7, and print the result, and it's 7. And let's use a little formatting, okay? Let's string formatting. I kind of like that. So let's say result, okay? And then you recall from my previous class, the way you format is like this. So what's going to happen? I'm just giving you a short tutorial. Basically, what it does is that f is a special character, and you put in front of the string. And what happens, like, it's going to print the whole string as it is, except anytime when it sees these curly braces, and inside the curly braces, whatever is present is going to treat that as a variable, and it's going to try to print the value of that variable. So in this case, it's going to print result colon, and then it sees these curly braces, and then it takes this res, it tries to find the value of this variable, and the value of this variable is a minus b, which is 10 minus 3 is 7. It's going to put 7 over there. So the answer would be, let's run this cell, result colon 7. All right. Okay. Next one. What's the other operation? The other operation could be a multiplication, right? Okay. Multiplication. Now, if you say 10 times 3, the answer is 30. Again, it's an integer. You take an integer, multiply by an integer, you get an integer. All right? So far, so good. What if you do division? Okay, let's do division. So a divided by 3, that means 10 divided by 3. If you divide 10 by 3, your result is going to be some number, clearly. And what type do you think that is going to be? If you think about it, 10 divided by 3 is not going evenly. So it's basically going to be 10, it's going to be 3.333, something like that. So since the answer is 3.3333, I would say that it should be a float. Okay, let's see if I'm correct. And yes, it is a float. Okay, and the result is 3.33. All right. Now there's something called floor division. All right. In floor division, what it does, it takes this number and it basically finds the least integer or the closest integer value it has at the lowest level. Okay. So in this case, it's gonna be 3. So the way you actually do this thing is the way you calculate the floor value. Okay. This is called floor division. Is you use this operator, double. Okay, you use double the operator, you type and see it's going to give you result as 3. All right, you can also do a modulus remainder. All right, or I'm sorry, a remainder, which is done through a modulus operator. Okay, and the modulus operator is this. This is called modulus operator. This, by the way, is called, let me write this thing down, floor division. Okay, floor division. And this is called, right here, this is called your modulus operator or modulus. Okay, another word is that I've seen in the literature is remainder. Okay, remainder. It's going to calculate the remainder for you. So 10 divided by 3, and the remainder should be, can anybody guess? 10 divided by 3, remainder is 1. And there you go, result is 1. Okay, so again, if I just want to give you a little rundown quick, what's happening is you basically, oops, let me just come over here, click on this. So let's say you have 10, okay, divided by 3. So 3 goes into 10 by 3 times, right? And the remainder, and the answer is 9. And then remainder is 1. So this is your remainder right there. That's what this one comes from. Okay, next. All right. Okay, next, so let's go now exponentiation. So what if you want 10 to the power 3? Okay, so the way you actually raise something to the power is you use this double multiplication. Okay, double multiplication, what it does is that it's going to write a to the power b. So if I want to do uh, like a to the power b, okay, so this is the notation I'm using. So for example, if I want to do 10 to the power 3. So in Python, the way you write like this 10 to the, remember in Python, in your keyboard, you cannot really type 10 to the power 3 because it doesn't have that option. So using your keyboard, what you can do is 10, you type like this, star, star key, and then 3. Okay, so let's do that. So I say, oops, let me get 3. All right, so you say result a to the power b, and your a is 10, 10 to the power 3, and let's run this cell, and the answer is 10,000. But if you want to say 10 to the power, actually let's make it 9, okay, to the power 2. Okay, 9 to the power 2 is 9 times 9 is 81. The answer should be 81. All right, so it prints that. Okay, so there's your exponential. Then comes float. What are the different operations you can do with float? Okay, float variables. All right, so let's talk about some of the operations we can do with float. All right, let's turn this into a markdown cell. These are my notes. Okay, so let's say you have variables, let's say x, okay, equal to 10.5, and let's say your y variable equal to 2.5. Okay, so in this particular instance, both of them are float. Well, let's just verify, are they float? Let's do that. Print type x. All right, so let's just be sure that they are basically float, and they are float. All right, no surprises over here. What? Now let's add these numbers. Okay, let's just follow the same. Let's consistency. So result equal to x plus 1. So if you take two float numbers, 10.5 and 2.5, two float numbers, and you add them together, okay, and then you print the type 2. This is a good idea to actually print their type just to see, gives you a little bit more additional information, gives you in touch with keeps you in touch with your programming, uh, like how the code is going and the flow of your code. Okay, so it prints 13.0 and the class is float. All right, good. Okay, what if you do subtraction? All right, again, should not surprise you. 8, 10.5 minus 10.5, the answer is 8.0. Okay, and the type is float, and it gives you the float. All right, so far so good. What if you do multiplication? Let's do that. Okay, so float times float. Okay, result, type result, and it gives you the float type. All right, so 10.5 multiplied by 2.5, the answer is 26.2. Okay, and also we can do the float division just like we did on the top. So let's start with the division first, the regular division. So 10.5 divided by 2.5, the answer is 4.2. Okay, so far so good. What if you do float division? Now, if you remember, float division, what it did, basically took this this particular value. So you have 4, which is your float. Think of the floor as your lowest number or lowest integer number. Okay, that's what the floor is. Your lowest integer number. Your lowest integer number is 4. Okay, so in this case, it's going to print the answer as 4. Okay, so let's run this thing, and there you go. The answer is 4, and it's basically a float. Okay, what if you want to find out its modulus? Okay, if you recall, what's a modulus? Modulus is remainder, right? Okay, so let's do that. How do you do the modulus? You actually put modulus operator. This one. Run this, and it's going to print class float. So 10.5 divided by 2.5, and your modulus operator gives you 0.5, which is your remainder. Okay. Likewise, you can do exponentiation. Exponentiation. So 10.5 raised to the power 2.5. How do you raise something to the power? If you recall, this is the notation I use. Just like if you go back on top, you will see somewhere right there. You see this? This is the notation I used. Okay. So this is the way you can raise something to the power. So 10.5 to the power 2.5, and let's raise that. And the answer is 357.25, so on and so forth. And then it's a class flow. No surprises here. So far, so good. It's easy, right? Okay. Okay, complex numbers now. Now, complex numbers, same thing. Let's say your complex number 1 is equal to 3 plus 4j. All right. The C2, which is your second complex number, let's say is equal to 1 plus 2j. Again, how do you define complex numbers? You actually define by the real number, okay? And then add or subtract sign up there, and then 4, and then you put this little j sign, okay? This is important. When you put a j sign, basically you're telling Python that, hey, all these numbers over here, basically think of them as a complex number. And so when you add, subtract, divide these numbers, you are going to treat them as complex numbers. So let's add complex numbers. So same thing, result equal, oops, sorry, result equal to C1 plus C2, all right, and print your result, all right, run this. So in this case, the way you add your complex number, if you recall from your high school mathematics, you basically add the real numbers together. So 3 and your 1 is your 4. So 3 plus 1 is 4. This is where this 4 comes from. And then you add or subtract your complex numbers depending on what the sign over here is. In this case, they both are plus. So you're going to say 4j plus 2j. The answer is 6j. All right. Okay. And what if you want to subtract them? Well, the problem, let's subtract. Okay. So C1 is equal to 3 plus 4j, and C2 equal to this. So this one is this. So 3, in this case, same logic. You can only, you subtract and add the corresponding part. So in this case, you subtract the real part from the real part over here, and imaginary part from the imaginary part. So 3 minus 1 is 2. Okay. And this is where you get this 2 from. So you're subtracting now 4j minus 2j, and the answer is 2j. And this is where your 2j is coming from. Okay, so we did the addition, we did the subtraction. What about multiplication? Now multiplication is a little tricky in your complex numbers. So I'm going to give you a little short tutorial on complex numbers, how they work. Okay, let's go right here. Okay, let me get my pen activated. All right, so it is activated. So let's say you have these numbers, okay, 3 plus 4j, okay, and the other number was your 1 plus 2j, all right. Now the way you actually multiply these numbers, okay, this is your multiplication sign over here, right there. The way you multiply these numbers is you multiply 3 by 1, okay, and then you multiply 3 by 2j, okay. Then you do the same thing, 4j gets multiplied by 1, and then 4j also gets multiplied by 2j. So you follow this query process. So 3 times 1 is 3, plus 3 times 2j is 6j, okay, plus 4j times 1 is 4j, plus, and then your 4j times 2j, 4j times 2j, all right? So the answer would be 3 plus, now 6j plus 4j, the answer is 10j, okay, again from your high school math, algebra, plus, now here's the tricky part. 4j times 2j. 4 times 2 is 8. All right, no surprises. Now here's the thing about j. This is a complex number. So in j, when you multiply j by j, it becomes j squared. And one of the property of j squared is that it's always going to be equal to -1. And that's what makes it a complex number. Like j squared equal to -1. And the reason it's called complex is because ideally you cannot really square root a negative number, right? I mean, if you think about it, square root of 4 is 2 because 2 times 2 is equal to 2, right? But if I say square root of -4, what is the answer? Which two numbers you can take together, the answer produces -4? Well, there is no number like that. There's no way you can actually have two integer numbers, multiply them together, and the answer would be -4. It does not exist. So, but still, in reality, in our mathematical equations, you do come across these -4, square root of -4, square root of -6. So mathematicians, they came up with this concept called J. And J basically is your square root of -1. Okay, so to deal with these type of situation, they came up with these numbers. So now root of -4 can be written as basically 4 times -1. Okay, which becomes root of 4 times root of -1, which comes out to be root of 4 is how much? 2, and root of -1 is j. So the answer is 2j. Okay, so that's what this means. So these are little tricks that mathematicians, they came out just to keep their mathematics a little easy. That's all. Okay, coming back to this. So 4j times 2j is 8j squared, right? 8j squared, j squared. And what exactly is your j squared? Right there, j squared is -1. As I explained over here, your j is equal to under root -1, which is the same thing as j squared equal to -1. So this becomes 3 plus 10j minus 8, right? This is -1 times 8 is -8. And this is going to become 3 minus 8 is how much? -5 plus 10j. The answer is -5 plus 10j. That should be the answer. Again, go through this thing again one more time, and that's going to make sense for some of you who have not worked with complex numbers. Okay, coming back to our book right there. So let's run this thing now. And the answer should be -5 plus 10j. All right. So far, so good. Now, you can also find an absolute value of a complex number. Okay. So what exactly is an absolute value? Let me explain you. Uh, the way you actually find absolute value is you actually use an inbuilt function called ABS. Okay, ABS is a short for absolute value. All right. And let's print the type again. Okay. You know what variable you're working with. Okay. TYPE type. All right. So this absolute value. I want to talk about this absolute value real quick. So let's go over here. So let's start with 3 plus 4j. Okay. So in our number line, you have like this. Okay. So this is your real axis or x-axis. This is your imaginary axis, y-axis. So when I say 3 plus 4j, basically what I'm saying is that you go 1, 2, 3, 4. You go 1, 2, 3, come over here, and then you go 1, 2, 3, and 4, but you come over here. So 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is this right here. So you go 3 in the positive direction on x-axis, or which is your real axis, and then you go 4 because there's a 4 over here. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 vertically up, and this point is your 3 plus 4j. Okay, this is your 3, 4j. And the magnitude or the absolute value of this would basically mean the distance from this point from the origin. This distance. This is your absolute value. And if you remember from your Pythagorean theorem, this is a right angle triangle. This is your 3, this is your 4. So this value is going to be equal to under root of 3 squared plus 4 squared, and the answer is under root 25. Okay, 3 square is 9, 9 plus 4, 16, 25, which is equal to 5. In other words, the length from here to here is 3, and if the length from here to here is 4, then this length has to be equal to 5. That's what this absolute value is. Okay, excuse me. So let's verify that. Let's run this thing, our code. Let's see if it produces 5. And sure enough, lo and behold, it produces 5. Good. Okay, so this takes care of the complex number operations. Next one, mixed operation. So mixed operation basically refers to when you are like multiplying an integer with a float, or a float multiplying float with an integer, or adding two different types of numeric, or adding or subtracting two different types of numerics. So what exactly is your final result? Okay, so that depends. Okay, so let's look at some of the examples that'll make more sense. Okay, and by the way, most of this stuff is fairly intuitive. So let me just show you how. Let's say you have number one. Okay, num1 equal to 5. Okay, what kind of variable that is? It's an int because there is no decimal. Let's say your num2 equal to 2.5, right? Let's let's have another variable, num3 equal to 1 plus 3j, right? Excuse me. Now, if you do result, actually, let's say uh, if you do result, okay, result equal to num1 plus num2. Okay, num1 plus num2. All right. So if you do that, my question is, oops, what happened over here? Why is it not going down? Oh, screen has froze. All right, my screen just froze. Give me a second, guys. All right. So yeah, there was an issue going on. Okay, now it's fixed. Okay, so mixed operation. So now we're going to do a mixed operation on basically, let's say you have number one, which is your integer right here. This is your int, okay, and this is your float. Why? Because of this decimal number right there, and this is your complex number, okay, because of this presence of this j. So if you take an integer and add to a float, okay, so let's see what it produces. So let's print our result, and also let's also print out our type, okay, print type. Okay, so let's see if you can guess before I press the run button. All right, so the answer is float. All right, so if you take an int and you add to a float, the answer would be float, and which makes sense because 5 plus 2.5, the answer is 7.5, and the answer has 0.5 in it. So your result is going to be float. Nothing surprising over here. Okay, the same thing now. Okay, and so let's say now I do uh, multiplication. All right. So if I take an integer and I multiply by a complex number, okay, an integer multiplied by a complex number. Okay, so let's say a complex number is num3. But let's see what do you think this is going to be. This is your integer. Okay, you're multiplying by this 1 plus 3j. Okay, so 5 times 1 is 5, and 5 times 3 is 15j. I would say it is a complex number. But let's see if I'm right. Let's run the cell, and yep, complex number. So what's happening is you're multiplying 5 by 1 plus 3j, and if you recall, it's basically the same thing. It's basically you just this from your high school math. Come over here. Let me just walk you through. So basically, what you're doing is you're taking 5 multiply by 1 plus 3j, okay, and the answer would be 5 times 1 is 5 plus 5 times 3 is 15 and j, okay, so the answer is 15j, and this is how you come across 5 plus 15j, right? Okay, and let's move this thing out of the way. Okay, next step, what if you take float and a complex number. Okay, so this is your float, your complex number. Let's see what it produces. All right, so float is your num2. All right, and you are adding to a complex number. All right, let's see what it produces. The answer is complex. Again, not a surprise over here because what's happening is 2.5 plus 1 plus 3j. So when you are adding two numbers, okay, this 2.5 is a real number and this is a real number, real part. So real part is going to get added to the real part. Okay, this does not have a j in it. So basically, you're just adding real part together. Okay, all right. So that concludes your numeric types.